Good morning, everybody. I would like to call the Niagara Police Service Board public meeting to order for January 22, 2026. My name is Nyaraika Pisawanu, and I'm the chair of the Niagara Regional Police Service Board. I'll move on to the roll call. Vice Chair Kiokio.
Present.
Member Gibson.
Present.
Member Eep.
Present.
Member McKendrick.
Present.
Member Steele.
Here.
Okay. We begin this meeting this morning by acknowledging that the Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hatch-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara Regional Police Service Board stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. At this point in time, is there any member with a conflict of interest?
I am declaring conflict of interest for 10.4, the special fund request.
Thank you, Member McKendrick. I would also like to declare conflict of interest for item number 9.1, the Town of Lincoln Council resolution. So we're going to do the adoption of the minutes of previous meetings. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes? Minutes of the public board meeting held Thursday, December 18, 2025. Seeing none, I ask that the minutes of the special public board meeting held Thursday, January 8, 2026, be adopted. Moved by Member Vice Chair Kiokio and seconded by Member Gibson. And we're also going to move them for the minutes of the public board meeting held Thursday, December 18, 2025, to be adopted as circulated. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I would ask that moved by Member McKendrick and seconded by Member Steele, that the minutes of the special public board meeting held Thursday, December 18, 2025 be adopted as circulated. And we're going to give the verbal reports. Sorry, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Thanks for that reminder. Right, I'm going to give the report, the board's chair report. On January 15th, the service hosted a promotion ceremony to formally recognize sworn and civilian members of the service who were promoted throughout 2025. Vice Chair Kiokio, Member McKendrick, and I attended the ceremony. It was a wonderful event, and the board is proud of our members' accomplishments and wishes them continued success in their roles. On January 20, the Canadian Association of Police Governance hosted its quarterly meeting for the Police Service Board Executive Directors and Board Chairs. These quarterly meetings are designed to facilitate discussions about common issues related to police service boards, commissions, and advisory boards, and to provide a forum where participants can share ideas about best practice approaches. The meeting was held virtually, and Executive Director Reed and I were in attendance. On January 23, the Police Service Board, the Niagara Regional Police Service, the Senior Officers Association, and the Niagara Region Police Association will be hosting a long-term service awards ceremony to recognize currently serving members and the retirees for their invaluable contributions made to the service and the Niagara community. The ceremony will begin at 11 a.m. in the community room at Police Headquarters. Vice Chair Kiokio, Member Steele, and McKendrick, board staff will be and I will be attending. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts monthly webinars as part of their educational strategy to keep police boards and police executives across Canada apprised of issues currently affecting the policing community. Upcoming webinars are scheduled on January 28 and 29 for discussions on recruitment to retention and the commitment to advance women in policing. Both webinars will begin at 12 p.m. and recorded copies of all webinars are sent to board members for their viewing. On January 29th, the service will be holding a recruit a recruit swearing-in ceremony to welcome 22 new recruit members of the Niagara Regional Police Service and 1 currently serving police officer. The ceremony will begin at 5 p.m. and take place in the community room at police headquarters. Members wishing to attend the graduation are asked to confirm with board staff. On February 23, I will be joining Chief 40 at West Lincoln's Town Council meeting for a presentation about NRPS policing programs. Members of West Lincoln's Town Council will have opportunity to address the chief, to ask questions, and address any community safety concerns impacting West Lincoln. On February 24 and 25, the Police Association of Ontario, in partnership with Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police and the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards, will be hosting the 35th Annual Police Employment Conference at the Toronto Marriott Hotel. The conference will bring together leaders and experts from every corner of Ontario's policing sector and provide participants opportunity to engage directly with leading legal experts about their analysis, research, and strategies that will help navigate the evolving landscape of police employment. Vice Chair Kiokio, members Gibson, McKendrick, and I, as well as Executive Director Reeb and Board Solicitor McCaig, will be attending the event. There are no committee meetings scheduled for February, and the next board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 26, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. in the community room at police headquarters. I'll now turn it over to the chief if you've got any reports.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to start by congratulating you on your appointment as the chair of the service. It's an important role, and we all look forward to working with yourself and the board as we move through 2026. And I would also like to take an opportunity to thank the vice chair for his leadership when he was the chair. I can tell the board that on the heels of the election and the chair's heartfelt comments with respect to our membership, I know it meant a lot to our people to hear that sort of positive feedback. So, Vice Chair, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your comments with respect to the good work that our members do every day. That said, I'll move to my prepared comments. I'd like to begin with an update regarding members of the Indigenous community that, as you are aware, have been displaced and rehoused in Niagara for a period of time. We currently have 900 evacuees in Niagara Falls that were displaced from Kasatchewan First Nations community in Northern Ontario. We anticipate another 800 Indigenous persons to come to the Falls. In order to support them, our Indigenous liaison officers and the Native Friendship Centers are engaged. As in similar instances where we have done our best to accommodate Indigenous communities that were displaced, Expera has been engaged and has hired a private security firm. Our goal and intent is to try to support the community in kind of the most compassionate, traditional manner we can, and not overstep or over-police as they come into our community and they experience a different lifestyle. On December 19th, this board is aware that our first responders attended a call to support bylaw officers in Welland when a male suspect opened fire on our police officers. One of our officers was struck and transported to a local hospital where she was treated by emergency room physicians and then ultimately released. While thankfully only one officer was shot, the traumatic nature of a call like this impacts many of our first responders, many of our support persons, and everybody, frankly, that works in the service. Our member support unit is appropriately engaged. The incident resulted in a shelter in place being communicated through our corporate communications unit, which lasted for over 24 hours, with police officers from several units in our service and several neighboring police jurisdictions also supporting us, the likes of Hamilton, Halton, Peel. Ultimately, the male was taken into custody and faces numerous charges, including 6 counts of attempted murder with a firearm, obviously. What unfolded in Welland is a reminder of the serious matters that our officers face when they come to work each and every day, and a reminder of their exceptional abilities and the professionalism demonstrated in our efforts to keep the community safe and to keep our officers safe during dynamic, kind of ever-changing police calls for service. I'm really proud of our response, and I'm really proud of how our leadership team, how the NRPA, how all of us responded. Unfortunately, these types of incidents are becoming more common, and our goal is to learn from everyone and try to do a better job, always to try to do a better job looking forward. During the holidays, our traffic units were out conducting ride checks, whereby we stopped hundreds of vehicles in an effort to keep our community safe as part of our ongoing focus on reducing fatalities. Last year, we had over 35 fatal collisions. This past weekend, we learned that the suspect that had been charged for committing 2 murders, and I'll say the victims' names, Juliana Panenzio and Christine Cooks in Fort Erie. Those murders happened over 5 years ago, and the accused was convicted of 2 counts of second-degree murder by a jury. This conviction highlights the kind of dogged determination and excellent work by members of our homicide unit and all the support units in the service that support a call for service of this nature. I can tell you that on the conviction, there was an outpouring, emotional outpouring of support for our primary investigator, file coordinator, team commander, who were all there with the family, who were very sincere and authentic in thanking our members for their commitment to duty, and they're supporting the family through this painful journey. On January, I'll move to community engagement. On January 1st, we attended Mayor Cisco's New Year's Day levee, where we had an opportunity to interact with community members and elected officials. On January 9th, members of our EDI unit attended the new student orientation service fair at the University of Niagara Falls. Our members interacted with over 80 students throughout the day, providing information about how to report incidents to the police and policing in Niagara and Canada more broadly. On January 12th, we hosted our Community Inclusion Council meeting with our community services partners from across the region, where Dr. Perez joined our meeting and provided them with your most recent strategic plan. So they were fully informed of the path forward and invited to provide their feedback with respect to anything we can do better. On January 19th, our EDI unit participated in a post-arrival information session hosted by the University of Niagara Falls. The unit gave a presentation titled Know Your Rights, which covered topics like identifying and reporting hate crimes, traffic safety, tenants' rights, and how to avoid scams, which was also followed up by a question and answer period where we tried to answer their questions as best we could. As referenced by you, Chair, on January 15th, we held our promotion ceremony in St. Catharines, recognizing the hard work and dedication of over 30 members that were promoted in 2025. On January 16th, 22 new recruits participated in a diversity tour last Friday, visiting local community and faith-based organizations like the Chinmaya Mission, the Peace Mosque, Niagara Region Natives Center, Chabad, Niagara, to learn about different cultural considerations and the ways in which each organization supports the community. On January 16th, we also attended the 3rd annual powwow at Brock University. On January 22nd, our EDI unit attended the Niagara College Student Services Fair at campuses in both Niagara-on-the-Lake and Welland to speak with new and returning students about our police service, how to recognize and report hate crimes, and to answer general questions about living and policing in Niagara. This month, we have engaged in a Know Your Rights campaign to inform the public about tow trucks and any regulations that might be relevant to any person that is involved in a situation that's involving tow trucks. Our Member Wellness Committee is excited to announce that registration is open for the NRPS 8-week fitness challenge, wellness challenge, that kicks off on Monday, January 26th. The challenge is focused on supporting members to feel their best through healthy lifestyle, and it says nutrition, but eating well. And I'll conclude my comments there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We have a presentation from Ride for Dad this morning, and Chief, if I may ask you to please present a speaker to us.
Thanks. Who we got presenting that? Oh, okay. Welcome, Sergeant. If you could please come forward. I didn't recognize you in your attire there. Thank you.
Sergeant King. I am the co-chair of Ride for Dad Niagara. We've been supported by both Niagara Regional Police and by the Police Services Board for several years. I have a couple of plaques that I'd like to present to the board and to Niagara Regional Police for the ongoing support. Very proud that Ride for Dad has been in Niagara for 15 years. This was our 15th anniversary, 16 rides, but we've raised over $1 million for prostate cancer research and awareness in Niagara. So thanks for your help, and we're saving men's lives in Niagara. So a couple of plaques to present, Chief and Chair. Probably up. So just to add to that, it's an annual event. It is on the Saturday of Father's Day weekend. We have between 215 to 250 riders. We are considered one of the premier rides in Canada because of our unique Niagara Parkway and our unique great vineyards and everything. So a lot of people around want to come and participate in our ride. And again, thank you very much for your support.
Thank you very much for that presentation and for our plaques. I appreciate it. So I ask that the presentation be received, moved by Member Gibson, seconded by Member Yip. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Kyokyo to assume the chair for consideration of item 9.1.
Okay, moved by Member Steele, second by Member Gibson. Is there any discussion to this following? The Town of Lincoln Council Resolution, the Code of Conduct for Human Trafficking Prevention in Niagara Region. Is there any discussion? I'm seeing none, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm going to ask that we move items 9.2 to 9.7 in block. Do any members have any questions or comments on any of the items? Member Eve?
Thank you, Chair Capasavanu. I have a number of questions about item 9.2, the cultural and bias awareness training and probationary performance evaluation. And it is a number of questions, so if you'll indulge me, I appreciate it. Through you, Chair, this is the first report I've ever read here where an individual board member is repeatedly named rather than the report being framed around questions from the board or questions from a board member. And I'm curious why this approach was taken for this report.
Thank you for your question, and through you, Chair. I don't recall thinking about that, but rather than the questions coming through the board via a motion, they came directly from the then vice chair, so they were answered in that manner.
Okay, thank you. In the same vein, through you, Chair, near the end of the report, beginning on page 16, there are responses to comments made by Chair Capasavanu in an email to follow up on December's meeting, and I've never seen an email to staff handled this way, and I mean, I've sent plenty of them myself, so I'm curious why this approach was taken with respect to those comments and being put into a report. I guess because it appears to me that the comments were provided in that email in good faith to give context to the questions being asked. And so to see them, you know, sort of paragraph by paragraph responded to the comments, it surprised me.
Through you, Chair, and thank you for your question. Again, I think the manner that it came was not typical, so perhaps that resulted in an atypical response. I think perhaps moving forward, what I can do is rather than receive emails directly, I could ask that they be, or through the executive director, that they come back to the board through a resolution to ensure that that sort of response is responded to in that manner. Again, it came in an unusual way, so perhaps that was the impetus for, sorry, it came in an uncommon way, so perhaps that was the impetus for the response. Well, it was the impetus for the response.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair. So then questions that I have directly about the report, and there are quite a number of them, so I'm going to reference page numbers and question numbers to hopefully help guide the discussion. On page 2, with respect to concerns about potential reasons for the low participation rate of the onboarding survey, the report notes that organizational culture could be the cause for concerns around psychological safety and concealing identity information, and then notes, am I hearing myself coming back? Is that?
We can hear you. I can hear you.
No, but I'm hearing okay. There, okay. Or there's conversation happening that I can hear. Anyway, could be the cause for concerns around psychological safety and concealing identity information. And then notes that these particular respondents were new members to the organization with little experience of the workplace culture. So if we don't think that it is about the organization, and I'm hoping that we're not suggesting that people are already concerned about the organizational culture before they even have any experience with it, and that's the low response rate. What do we think is driving the lack of response? So if we are concerned that the low response rate is about organizational culture, but the answer is, well, no, they didn't have any experience with the organizational culture, then what do we think is driving the lack of response?
Apologize, I'm not sure that I followed your question.
So, on page 2, the board referenced the low participation rate in the onboarding survey and inquired about potential reasons for such a low rate, inclusive of concerns respecting psychological safety when deciding to disclose concealed identity information. There were suggestions that organizational culture could be the cause for these concerns, and those are reasonably valid, although it is worth pointing out that respondents were new members with little experience of the workplace culture. So if it's not about workplace culture, because they're new, then what do we expect the low response rate is a result of? Like, are they already concerned about the organizational culture before they even have experience with it?
Thank you. I think I follow your question. So if I understand your question, you're asking if the reference on page 2, second paragraph, second sentence, starting with the word suggestion. Mm-hmm. I think there's an acknowledgement that we say it could be the cause. We said that that's reasonably valid, although it's worth pointing out that the respondents are new members to the organization. So to me, what that means is they do not yet have an understanding of what the culture is, so it might be speculation to assume that there's a recognition or there's an issue with the culture because they're not ingrained in the culture yet. They're new employees.
Right, and that's what I took from that as well, but then I'm wondering, have we given any thought then to, if it's not organizational culture because they have no experience with the organizational culture, what is driving the lack of response?
I think there's a couple things. First of all, it's a voluntary survey. They're not required to under the Ontario Human Rights Code. There's no mandatory requirement for them to participate. They're choosing to or not. I don't know that it would be appropriate to speculate either way that with respect to their personal decision.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair, on page 4, in the paragraph that begins following up on the 2022 survey, so it's more than halfway down the page there. It's indicated that the service worked with Dr. Workman-Stark to better understand the data around discrimination and sexual harassment. But then the service felt that something meaningful could not be created to address these concerns while protecting the privacy of the individuals who spoke with the doctor. I would assume that's because there were very few meetings that were engaged in, that people took the opportunity to meet with the doctor.
No, I would not say that's accurate because I think, as this board knows, Dr. Workman-Stark is a former member of the RCMP. that I had worked with prior to being a member of the of the Niagara Regional Police, and several members met with her, both personally and in group settings, but the nature of some of the complaints were very specific, that they could not be anonymized. It was voluntary, and they were told when they came in that their identity would be protected.
Okay. And so then, I mean, I guess I have difficulty, I think that there are ways I think there are ways to still develop tools to address discrimination and sexual harassment in the workplace without identifying people. So I'm curious, did Dr. Workman-Stark suggest that something meaningful couldn't be created to address these concerns? Or was that a service decision? And has any further consideration been given to this?
I think there were a couple of questions in there, but maybe I'll just speak with the fact that the work in this domain continues. It has not been discarded. Dr. Workman-Stark is still engaged with our service, with Paul Kaczynski, with Superintendent Kaczynski, Director Blood, in an effort to, we delivered a pilot project in 2025 on ethical leadership, and we are in the throes of developing a more comprehensive training package in 2026 as part of our ongoing efforts to create a safer workplace, to enhance the skills and abilities of our leadership cadre as part of our strategic plan. And I'm speaking, and I haven't invited Dr. Perez to provide any additional insights, because I know he's been a part of, one, he was a part of preparing this report, and two, he's heavily engaged in helping identify and deliver the path forward. So I hope that answers your question, and I think Deputy Chief Greco would also like to provide some comments, if that's okay, Chair.
Through you, Chair, just to that specific paragraph that you're referencing, like the Chief touched on, there were specific incidents that were reported through those meetings with Dr. Stark, that those specific elements couldn't be actioned due to the anonymity part of it without exposing the information that was provided. From these sessions, we incorporated a whole respectful workplace review training package that was delivered to every single member from that, including the additional steps that the Chiefs referenced. So this is specific to some of the more I'll say serious, for lack of a better word, concerns that were raised through her meetings with these people, but we couldn't specifically speak to them without it exposing what the incidents were.
Okay, thank you.
respect
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I guess, I have some concerns throughout the report in that there are questions that are asked, and then the answers to the questions are in fact not at all answers to the questions. I don't think, I know that no one on this board expects that private information would ever be divulged. The way that paragraph is written, it reads like meetings were had, we couldn't do anything meaningful, so we did nothing. That's how it reads, right? So that's why I raised it. Moving along through you, Chair, to page 6, which is question number 1 with respect to psychological safety and trust. The request for evidence that members feel psychologically safe to self-identify across race, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and Indigenous identity is responded to by saying, among other things, that 81.6% of survey respondents expressed that the service is a workplace that is inclusive of persons with diverse backgrounds and points of view. So first of all, that's actually not, I mean, nothing in this answer is an answer to the question. But this is one of the very few surveys I've seen where more men than women responded. It's quite typical that you get a higher response rate from women. And the data we received in December's report indicates that the service's demographics trend significantly towards cis heterosexual white men. So does the service understand the concern with response to this survey question, that a majority of respondents who are cisgender, heterosexual, and white are saying that it is a workplace that is inclusive of persons with diverse backgrounds and points of view? Sorry, my questions are long today.
Yes. So that's a new question that you're asking?
Well, so the question is, what evidence do we have that members feel psychologically safe to self-identify across these various demographics? The answer that we're given does not address the question, and it instead talks about a majority of people who do not, who are cisgender, heterosexual, and white, saying, oh, but we're inclusive and diverse. And I'm wondering if the service understands the problem with the answer to that question.
So does the service understand the problem with the answer to the question?
Like to have the dominant culture suggest to have the dominant culture say, oh yeah, we're inclusive and diverse, doesn't mean we're diverse and inclusive, right? And so I guess I'm looking for a recognition that the service understands that that is a problematic way to answer this specific question.
Well, thank you for your comment or your question. I think that this response tried to answer the question as best we can. It is difficult to speculate on whether or not somebody feels psychologically safe if they haven't participated in the survey. We are trying to create an environment where everybody feels safe, and hopefully in upcoming surveys we have greater representation from all communities, including the communities that you've referenced in your question. But the data is the data, and I don't want to speculate on why some people are responding and why some people aren't. It is a voluntary process, and I think our role is to try to create an environment where every person feels they can, one, they feel welcome and part of the service, and two, they feel comfortable talking about concerns if they have any or not.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Chair, so still on this question, because what was provided in response to this question doesn't answer the question, we do not have an answer to what evidence do we have that members feel psychologically safe to self-identify across race, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and Indigenous identity. Do we have an answer to that question?
I don't know that we can say we have evidence that they do feel safe, or we don't have, nor do we have evidence that they don't feel safe. I think we'd be speculating to try to, in the absence of them participating, we don't know why they are not participating.
Okay, thank you.
So, I'm sorry, through you, Chair, Deputy Greco would also like to provide a comment.
Through you, Chair, I think it's difficult to blend these two questions, because it's essentially, the question is about self-identity, but the survey wasn't specifically put out to the membership about self-identifying. It was about psychological safety. So we're taking historical survey results and data that we have in our possession to try to answer the question that was posed. But I want to bring everybody back to that under the new STRAT plan with the EDI pillar and the new surveys that are being proposed, we're hoping that we will be able to get proper, more accurate data, more timely data to satisfy these concerns. This report was an attempt to try to answer the questions with data that we have access to. So just put that out.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, still a few more questions here. Page 7, question 2. So, I mean, again, like many of the questions in this report, the answer that's provided isn't an answer to the question that was asked. I am looking for someone to elucidate upon the statement that it could be that their identity is not central to their self-concept or who they are. I read that sentence many times, trying to figure out if maybe I was reading it incorrectly, because I cannot figure out how someone's identity is not central to their self-concept, or why there would be quotes around who they are, but.
Thank you, Chair. I've just looked back and Dr. Perez has indicated that he'd like to provide some context. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Madam Chair. Particular to that specific question, the same sentence also read that perhaps also participants do not want to disclose that information, or they're not required to provide a reason.
Right.
And we have seen in the literature and different papers that that's one of the top reasons why participants or low response rates when it comes to voluntary and related to private or personal information. So that's the article that I have here in my hands from MAMBI, 2020-25. It's from a large study that they conducted in healthcare facilities. So the response rates for those type of studies, when it comes to self-identification, voluntary-based participation, it's between 20 to 30%. And one of the causes or the reasons why those response rates, according to the literature, are low, it's because of the nature of the information. In some cases, participants, they simply decline to provide that information because they don't want to release their personal information or private information. That's simple. The other reasons that these authors have referring to the literature are related to the mode of delivery of the survey. Sometimes they might not have access to a computer or a tablet, or they require paper-based surveys. And the third reason could be the time allocated to respond to those surveys. As you're aware, sometimes the workload or the normal workload of our officers prevents them from getting engaged on this type of service. What we are proposing moving forward is, with the direction of the board, allowing or asking supervisors to facilitate at least 30 minutes for members to answer the survey. That has been demonstrated in different in the literature that could help to boost a little bit the response rates. Of course, we will never have a perfect response rates of 100%, just for awareness, but that will help us to get a better response rates when it comes to that type of service. So first, allowance. The second component is the mode of delivery. We plan to place QR codes. We plan to have paper-based questionnaires for those who want to do it paper-based rather than a computer. Remember that most of our officers, they work from their vehicles. That's their main office. So by doing that, we believe that we can obtain a better response rate when it comes to that, of course. And the invitation from supervisors, sergeants, staff sergeants, and of course our civilian personnel to answer the survey, because of course it's a voluntary-based survey, but we are doing the best we could to get that, to get higher response rates. But again, the response rates for self-identification in workplace experiences, and this is from a study in BC in healthcare, it's about 20 to 30%. So when it comes to this type of information, the research suggests that we could expect those ranges. And I'm just cautioning about what you can expect moving forward. Of course, we'll do everything we can to have a higher response rate, but again, the evidence shows what those ranges could be, and hopefully we could have higher response rates of what the evidence has shown we could expect. On another note, I think we need to also be very specific of what it is, those response rates. So the response rates were from the self-identification survey for onboarding members. So again, that's only some questions, 13 questions that relate to their identity and their demographics. Of course, response rates for those specific years round between, if you look at the table that we provide in the report, they round between 20 to 30% depending on the year. Of course, it's the number of new members who were onboarded against the people who, or the number of respondents, that's the response rate. And response rates are very much in line with what the evidence has suggested is a normal range of response for those type of questions. Again, what we're trying to boost is a response rate. The second component of that is the safeguarding, the guarding minds at work instrument. So that's another component, and we're reporting on that, and that has different dimensions. It has our plan moving forward. It's incorporating the 6 dimensions that the original instrument had, plus additional items that could help us to answer the questions posed by member Capistrano, or Chair Capistrano. So we try to get those responses because, of course, we need, in order for us to come here and present the information, we need to do a survey. We need to collect that information so we can present transparently and accurately information that will help to answer those questions. But if you look at the instrument, the 61 items, some of the 61 items that the original instrument had would not help us to address those questions properly. So what we did, we took as a base that instrument, the original instrument, the Guarding Minds of Work, with 6 dimensions. First dimension is psychological safety and inclusion. The second dimension is leadership and communication and change. The third dimension is growth, engagement, and recognition. The fourth dimension is workload and balance. The fifth dimension is physical and psychological protection. And the sixth dimension is workplace, stress, harm, and risk. So those are the original dimensions, and we decide to include through consultation with subject matter experts additional items to properly address the questions that were posed, so we can come here with information that it's actually useful to inform decisions by this board moving forward. I hope that clarifies a little bit.
Thank you. I appreciate all of that information. It didn't answer the question that I asked, but it did raise another question. With respect to the 20 to 30%, response rates for surveys, you indicated, Dr. Perez, that the survey responses are in line with the services response rates, which is accurate according to my math. I am wondering what happened in 2025, though, where there was a 7.2% response rate.
Thank you for that question, and through you, Madam Chair. The plausible explanation that we have for that is the time when we prepare the report. Of course, we have different hires towards the end of the year and the new class of members that were finalizing their training to become a fully deployed police officers. And that's just an influence that could happen towards the end of the year. It's just the time of extraction of the data, the raw data, to prepare that report could have influenced the number of total participants that were reported year-to-date 2025.
So the individuals counted there may not have received the survey because of the timing of the training? Is that what you're saying?
Well, simply put, is once they get to be onboarded, it's when they receive that the survey, right?
So we counted number of new recruits, number of new hires, but those new hires may not have received the survey, and that's why the respondents is so.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's based on the process. So we have a process for onboarding members, right? They have to pass through different tests, but also they have to complete their initial training with the coach officers. And then the process follows through human resources, our training unit. And once that is finally completed, they will receive the survey and then they can participate. So that's what I'm saying. A plausible explanation for why the response rate it's a little bit lower in 2025 is just the year-to-date results.
Okay.
This is a snapshot in time to prepare that specific report.
Okay, thank you, that makes sense.
But we could happily refresh those numbers, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Although we want to change the instrument
Right.
to have a better way of collecting data.
Right,
So,
okay, thank you. Through you, Chair, so I am still looking for someone to explain to the board how identity is not central to someone's self-concept.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you, Member Yip. I think we would probably need, in fairness to Superintendent Kaczynski, we would need to consult him with respect to the words contained in that sentence. I think, and just first, so I have it correct, you're talking about the sentence starting with the word it. It could be that their identity is not central to their concept or who they are.
Yeah,
Correct,
which,
okay.
because, I mean, identity and and who they are, I mean, those are, I don't know how they couldn't be essentially the same thing, right? Your identity, your self-concept, who you are, those are, they're the same. So,
Thank you, and I don't want to speculate whether or not they're talking about their personal identity, professional identity. I think, in fairness to Superintendent Kaczynski, I wouldn't want to speak on his behalf with respect to that sentence.
okay,
What I would like to say, though, is he's not saying that to be a fact. I think he's posing it as a question. It could be that their identity is not central.
I mean, it's an incredible sentence, I think, that requires some clarification. Through you, Chair, since it's not answered in the report, does the service have a way of differentiating between genuine personal choice in self-identification and identity concealment driven by fear, stigma, or perceived career risk?
Thank you for your question, and through you, Chair, I'll invite Dr. Perez back to the podium, if that's okay.
thank you for that question, and through you, Madam Chair. So as we report in this document, right now, the survey or the instrument that was administered, it has no way of having that answer straightforward.
Okay.
However, in the new instrument, according to what I just shared with members of this board, we're planning to ask those specific items because for us, we took that very seriously. And those items were not captured in the original instrument, 61 questions. So we are including additional items that will help us to address that information. On top of that, we're planning, and probably I'm going beyond of the explanation, but I just wanna provide fully transparency. We're also planning to ask the members in the consent form. That's the initial part. whether or not they would like to participate in this voluntary, anonymous, self-identification survey. We're planning to ask them yes, no, and if they say no, a drop-down list will pop up in an open box for them to say if they want to, of course. If they want to, why is the reason that your decision is to not participate? Of course, if they want to. If they decide to provide that additional explanation, so then we can come forward and share the results for those who decide to participate, but also for those who did not or make that decision for not participating in the survey. And then we can inform future programs and future actions. Okay. But again, information is very important. We need to have good information to make good decisions. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That answered a question that I had later. So thank you for that. Through you, Chair. Page 9, question number 4. There's a statement in the paragraph at the top of the page that it says the response rate is not indicative of the level of trust in the services system. It strikes me that you can't possibly know that. So how do you know that? So again, the sentence it's the middle of the paragraph, essentially, it says the response rate is not indicative of the level of trust in the services system.
Thank you for that question. Are you looking at page number 9, correct?
Page 9, in that top paragraph that starts the invitations to participate, just a touch more than halfway down in that paragraph, it says the response rate is not indicative of the level of trust in the services system.
Right. And thank you for that, through you, Madam Chair. It's the sentence here is because those who respond the self-identification survey at onboarding, they have been engaged and participating with the service. So they are new members. Okay. And we also said in the same sentence, response rate is not indicative of level of trust in the service system, but there is an opportunity for the service to explore different ways to elicit higher rates of participation for new employees. And the service is taking steps to improve response rates, as we share with you, as outlined elsewhere in this report. So we do recognize that there's an opportunity for increasing that response rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, Dr. Perez, you might want to just stay there. Yeah. I mean, unless you're trying to get your steps in back and forth. So in response, okay, so you've already answered my question, because my question was with respect, it's on the same page. It says questioning members who do not participate in a voluntary self-identification survey could undermine the process. And I immediately thought of at least one way that you could find out why people are not responding, but you've addressed that with the drop-down. I think that's excellent. Page 11, question 9, I promise you I'm almost done. The question, so page 11, question 9, in response to a question asking at what point the low participation rate becomes an organizational responsibility rather than an individual choice, which would speak to psychological safety and culture and those things. The answer is that the service is not contemplating removing individual choice or the right of privacy, which is both not an answer to the question and not what the question is suggesting in the first place. So I'm going to ask if someone could speak to this and offer an answer to the question. Again, when does the low participation rate become an organizational responsibility and not simply viewed as an individual choice? So people are not responding, not because we talk about choice and nobody ever thinks about, okay, but what is informing that choice, right? We talk about choice like it is a thing that all of us are free to do in every circumstance, no matter what, without any thought to what's informing the choice, how much of a choice is it really? So is it individual choice? Is it fear? Right? When does it become an organizational responsibility to address that low participation rate?
Thank you. I'll invite Dr. Perez to provide some opening comments, and then I have a thought, but if he doesn't share it.
Thank you for that question, and through you, Madam Chair. That takes my point back to what I originally posed. We need to better data. We need to ask members why do they decide to not provide that information. Is it, and the drop-down list has different categories, but also an open box for them to put why they decide to not provide that information in the survey. There's two components of that. So it is difficult, of course, to make those conclusions with the information that we have. That's what I'm saying. We need better data. And the second component is when we design this type of instruments, we need to be very careful balancing individual privacy to disclose that information against the human right code or the Ontario Human Right Code, and what information and how we process and how we collect that information. That's something that we take very seriously because, of course, the nature of the information. And there's also a body of knowledge in terms of the Tri-Council of Canada on how we conduct that type of information. Consent is very important for us, and one of the items, I'm certified by the Tri-Council of Canada for conducting ethical research. One of the concepts that they specify is consent. Consent is extremely important. If participants declare that they don't want to participate, we need to understand that no is no, right? Of course, we're doing a little bit of a stretch in order for us to get that information that can help to provide some input, but the consent piece is very important for us when we design this type of instruments, and I think we understand why the ethics behind those instruments is very important.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair. So if I'm understanding correctly, then the tool, the new tool that's being developed or updated with the drop-down and that open comment area, we're hoping it will provide information so that if people are choosing to not respond and they're saying, here's why, and any of those reasons are related to the service causes this situation, that's when we can further investigate and take organizational responsibility. Is that what we're hoping? That's what I took from your answer.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's also an open box that goes along with the survey. So if you have additional information that you'd like to share, and you're willing to, that will be the opportunity moving forward. Again, we're working to get better data and also present transparently that information so you can make informed decisions moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you still?
No, the way you framed your question, the back end of the question was going to be my response.
Okay. Thank you. And one final question, which doesn't promise there won't be follow-ups, but page 14, question 18.
Sorry, Count, if I can just add an additional comment on the last question. The other part of this is the steps going forward on these surveys is the why. Why is this survey important? And we need to reinforce that with the membership about the importance of the surveys, the data, and what it's going to be used for and why we need it. And with it being part of the strategic plan, we're really driving this information through our membership of the importance of the strategic plan as our guiding document for the next 4 years, and this is a component of it. So that there's going to be a bigger emphasis on the why we are putting out these surveys and the benefits of them that we receive.
Okay, thank you. I think that's important as well, so I appreciate that. All right, and so page 14, question 18. The question is asking how the service verifies that cultural and bias awareness training actually changes how probationary officers are evaluated. And part of the answer is that performance evaluations are expected to be fair and objective. There truly is a whole discussion to be had around whether anything can be truly objective, but I will limit my question to asking if any consideration has been given to whether the performance evaluation itself is biased, and if not, why? If there hasn't been any consideration, why not?
So through you, Chair. I just wanted to confirm if it was a performance appraisals or performance, this is the recruit performance evaluation process that we're talking about, the recruit manual, I believe is what this is referencing.
Yeah, it is, it does reference probationary officers.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the recruit officer program, the training officer program, the training officers, before they become valid training officers, I believe there's another area where it covers it off. Yeah, the training is intended to enhance cultural sensitivity. The coach officer program, I haven't taken the most recent one. There are articles and portions of it that cover bias and respect for diversity in that program. I believe it's referenced, might be elsewhere in the report that I saw it. The actual recruit officer program, it's that foundational learning for our new members when they come in, and they're evaluated on those hard skills, competencies, to demonstrate that they have the foundation that they need to become a police officer, that they can demonstrate the skills and the legislative knowledge and powers of arrest, authority, enforcing the laws, engaging with the community. Those elements are covered off throughout the training period. Mario, how the actual, the guide, how many pages is it?
Extended 60 shifts worth.
Yeah.
Guides it.
Okay, so it's about a 200-page guide. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'm not sure if we've ever provided it to the board for review. It is being reviewed again to find additional corrections that could be made with it or improvements that could be made with it. But it's a foundational document to try to cover core competencies that we feel probationary officers need to achieve in order to be assessed over this 60, a period of 60 working shifts or more if needed, to demonstrate that they were able to demonstrate that they have the abilities to be an effective police officer. As to the specifics of each element of training, if it's free of bias, I can't say that without going through a line-by-line assessment of it, but it's based on skills and abilities that the officers can demonstrate that they have the abilities to be a police officer. I don't know if that.
I mean, I think it does. I think the last sentence that you just said answers the question that you can't say that the assessment is free of bias or that each element of it is free of bias. And so I think that's what this question was initially getting at, was the performance evaluation itself, while considered fair and objective, may be biased itself, right? And I was curious if any consideration had been given to that. Thank you, Chair, for indulging me, and to members of the service for answering my many questions. I have some thoughts about the responses to Chair Capisavenu's email that's disclosed in this report, but I will save those for a later discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Eep. Do any other members have any questions or comments? Okay, I just have I have some comments and followed by questions for the service members, please. So I put my comments in two parts. There's the comments and then there's the questions for the chief. And I think I would like to just start by acknowledging that I appreciate a few things in the report, and one of the things that I appreciated was the explicit acknowledgement that psychological safety has historically been weak, because it's candidly stated in the report. And the second item that I appreciated is the investment in research and external expertise, the engagement of Dr. Workman-Stark over multiple years, the use of validated tools like the Guarding Minds at Work, and also the concrete policy corrections, the protected leaves and promotions, the amendment of job postings, promotion rules to correct disadvantages for members returning from protected leave is a clear example of structural bias mitigation. And last but not least, I appreciate the admission that EDI-specific competencies are not mandatory, as explicitly stated in the report that EDI-specific competencies are not currently mandatory probation criteria. And what I find from this transparency is that it exposes a major gap, and where my concerns are, some of the things have been addressed by Member Eep, But I did have concerns with a few of the statements, and instead of asking questions to why they were, because I think Member Yip has done that already, I'm just going to highlight why these statements within the report were concerns for me. And the first one was that, for me, was that identity on page 7 under question 2, where identity couldn't be central to the self-concept. And the reason this was a concern for me is that that statement, and we will wait for Inspector Koziski to come back, but I had concerns with the fact that when you have statements like that in reports, it recenters, if you're looking through the EDI principles, it is recentering the burden on the individual, not the institution. And my questions were not focusing on individuals at all, but we are looking at the institution itself and not individuals. And so when you're looking at EDI principles, they require institutions to ask what conditions make disclosure feel unsafe, not perhaps identity just doesn't matter to them. And it also, that kind of statement, it minimizes structural power dynamics. In policing, I think identity is not neutral. It is historically linked to discipline, belonging, promotion, and informal networks. It also risks invalidating lived experience, and it functions as a rhetorical deflection. So from an EDI standpoint, this statement reframes a systemic trust issue as a personal preference issue. The second statement that I had concerns with is the response rate is not indicative of the level of trust. And the reason I had concerns with that, and I think Member Yip touched a bit on that, is that this directly contradicts organizational psychology or EDI research and the service's own earlier findings. Participation rates in identity disclosure are widely recognized indicators of psychological safety. And the report elsewhere acknowledges fear, silence, and network suppression, yet dismisses participation as a signal. The third statement is the service did not follow up with the members who chose not to participate, and this is page 9 under question 5. The service did not follow up with members who chose not to participate. Questioning why members do not participate could undermine the process. The concern I have with that is that we are equating as well as confusing inquiry with intrusion, and it shuts down learning. Asking about barriers does not equal coercing disclosure. It's two different things. I think if we are looking at a system, what we are asking ourselves is what within our system is in place that is making disclosure a barrier, as opposed to us making members be forced to answer questions that they don't want to. So when you're looking at it again through the EDI best practice, I think we have to distinguish, it distinguishes between why didn't you disclose your identity, which is inappropriate on many levels, but what could make participation feel safer? We are looking at changing systems as opposed to individuals. The fourth statement that I had issues with or concerns with was page 11 under question 9. It's difficult to conclude that participation rate is evidence of a psychologically safe and inclusive culture. Why this was concerning for me is that it undermines measurement entirely. If participation, perception surveys, and climate data are all dismissed as inconclusive, then nothing is measurable. EDI governance requires imperfect but directional indicators, not certainty. And the one that I found, I think, for me the most concerning, page 14 under question 18, the cultural and bias awareness training is not meant to change how probationary officers are evaluated. And the reason this is concerning is that from an EDI standpoint, if training does not change how decisions are made, how behavior is interpreted, how discretion is applied, and how bias is interpreted, then what are we doing? It's not inclusion, it's risk containment. What that comes out then is that training is symbolic and it's not functional. Because EDI training is explicitly intended to change perception and change interpretation and change decision-making under uncertainty. So the report cannot simultaneously claim bias mitigation and say training does not change evaluation. From the information in this report, the answer to my original question, which initiated all this conversation, does the service have a standardized probationary performance evaluation framework incorporating measurable bias mitigating criteria? The answer would be no. We do not have such a framework. And the report ultimately admits this. In one part, the report says there's a standardized probationary performance evaluation framework. And later, it explicitly states the service does not currently incorporate EDI-specific competencies as mandatory probation evaluation criteria. That's page 17, paragraph 1. The report references a standardized probation performance evaluation framework, which outlines core competencies, multiple reviewers involved in assessments, training and coaching and supports. But however, nowhere does the report demonstrate that the probationary framework includes explicit measurable bias mitigating criteria, such as anti-bias checkpoints embedded in evaluation tools, objective performance anchors tied to culture and bias awareness, and EDI-specific competencies affecting pass or fail outcomes. And disaggregating reporting on outcomes by identity markers. Without these, I don't think the framework can reasonably be described as bias mitigating, only procedurally consistent. What we have in existence is a structure, but not a bias mitigated framework. And so, just to shed some light to the public that is listening, it is important to explain a little bit about why these bias mitigating probation instruments are a governance responsibility. It's not an operational preference, right? The Police Service Board has a statutory duty to ensure services are accountable, equitable, and effective, to protect against discriminatory outcomes, and to safeguard public trust and legitimacy. Boards do not do this by telling staff how to manage individuals, but by ensuring systems and frameworks embed equity, transparency, and accountability. And I'd like to call to attention the CPSA, Employment, Recruitment, and Labor Reforms that came into effect January 1, 2026. And most of my questioning was based around this piece of legislation. The provincial reforms under the Community Safety and Policing Act, as highlighted by the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, are explicitly aimed at promoting transparency, reducing bias, and supporting equitable access to employment opportunities, as well as ensuring inclusive and fair hiring and evaluation practices. These reforms are not narrow HR instructions. They are legislative policy direction rooted in human rights and equity. The spirit of the SCPSA changes includes bias-free recruitment and assessment, documentation and justification of decisions, accessibility and fairness in career progression, and board oversight over systems that affect equity in employment. So it is the board's responsibility to ensure service practice align with both the letter and the spirit of these reforms. Some of my questions some may question how probationary period is tied to recruitment, and I would argue that it is. Probation is not a separate HR process. It's the final and most critical stage of the recruitment. Recruitment will screen for capacity, training builds competencies, and I think you can expand on that based on the service. Probation evaluates performance, but the final decisions determine employment confirmation or separation. A recruit who fails probation is effectively removed from the organization. Therefore, probation is a hiring decision point. It must be transparent and bias mitigated because it directly affects workforce diversity, retention, and equitable careers. So my questions for you, Chief, I have 6 questions around this report. My understanding from the report, and I stand corrected, is that the service currently mitigates, and you may have touched on some of it when Member Yip was asking the questions. The service currently mitigates the risk of unconscious or systemic bias at key probationary decisions points by relying on standardized evaluations, multiple reviewers, training and oversight with supervisors who are trained in bias awareness. Could you clarify where specifically bias mitigation is documented or measured within the probationary evaluation tool itself as opposed to relying on professional judgment and training?
Thank you, Chair, for your, first of all, thank you for your comments. And with respect to your question and any, I think, additional questions that are coming, I think what is clear to me and is that our service, like other police services, have an opportunity to grow and develop with respect to creating psychologically safe or an environment where people feel safe in providing feedback. With respect to your questions, they're very, I think I would not do them justice to simply provide a quick response based on, off the top of my head, given the, one, the importance of them, and two, the nature of them and the number of people that I would need to engage in the service to provide a fully informed, comprehensive and accurate response. So your last question about systems embedding equity and inclusion in them, and anti-bias training or filters in the probation period. I think the responsible thing for me to do would be to have a more fulsome review of our process. I suspect that there's room for us to grow on the continuum, and there likely are gaps because as a service, we're not perfect. And I know it's a bit of a motherhood statement or response to quite a well thought out question that you had, that I wouldn't want to give an answer that's not well thought out and well not researched.
I appreciate that response, Chief. And so in that spirit, because there was 5 more questions that I have that I would like answers for. So I will forward them through to the board director to be sent through to you for response. And I appreciate the fact that we do recognize that as a service, we do have room to grow and to improve. And I think that is the point of these discussions, to see that, we are improving our systems.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. And admittedly, as a police service who traditionally investigates and solves crimes, those questions are oftentimes easier for us to answer than some of the questions that have been posed by Member Yip. They're admittedly areas that our service and other services are trying to better understand and provide more responsive, more equitable processes and outcomes. So thank you for your patience. And again, I acknowledge we're not perfect and we have room to grow. We have made significant steps. It's a journey that we're on, but the journey continues.
Thank you, Chief. Do we need to put forward a motion?
Are you just going to be receiving it, or do you can take that as direction? I can take that as direction. I can take that as direction, then I'll follow up. I'll wait for the questions from yourself, and if Member Yip has any, and I'll circulate it to the board members in case there are others that have questions, and send them to the chief.
Thank you. Moving on. So any other questions, comments on items 9.2 to 9.7 that were moved in block? Yes, Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just a comment on the discussion this morning. I know it was pointed and a lot of questions that I think we had difficulty coming up with the answers. I think it's very important what has just transpired because, as you say, Chief, it's a learning process and we're maybe, I don't want to use the words behind, but it's something we're working on. And Member Yip and Chair Capizavanu, in really looking at this and digging down deep, can only make us better. So for that, I want to thank them. It's a good job.
Thank you, Member Gibson. Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, I would ask that the information be received, moved by Member McKendrick and seconded by Member Kiokio. Vice Chair Kiokio, my apologies. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. We now move on to item number 10, new business. Downtown St. Catharines safety concerns. A letter was received January 15th, 2026 from Mayor Cisco, City of St. Catharines, providing a copy of letter addressed to Chief Fody respecting an information request regarding the concentration of criminal activity among a relatively small number of individuals in the community and how this trend is affecting safety, public order, and the economic vitality of downtown St. Catharines. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this? Or the chief?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's correct. I received written correspondence from the mayor's office as well as the executive director. We are in the throes of starting to prepare data to better inform or fully inform our response. And I anticipate coming back to the board and inviting the board to accompany me to and our team to St. Catharines Council to provide them with a response to what is a live issue for them, and that is really the economic development and the wellness of the downtown core in St. Catharines. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I'd ask that the Chief of Police be directed to review the request from the Mayor of the City of St. Catharines and report back to the board and the Mayor with the requested information regarding repeat individuals driving downtown calls for service, related justice system outcomes, and any operational or systemic constraints. Moved by Member Yip, seconded by Member Gibson. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 10.2, Police Service Board Committee Representations. A report dated January 12, 2026 from Executive Director Deb Reed, Niagara Police Service Board, requesting the board confirm the mandate and membership of board committees for 2026. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I ask that the board approve the committee mandate as outlined in the report and confirm its committee membership for 2026. Moved by Member McKendrick, seconded by Member Steele. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 10.3, remotely operated vehicle request for proposal 2025, RFP 165. The service report dated December 22, 2025, requesting the board approve the request for proposal initiated through the Niagara region, the region of Niagara's RFP process to Simo Marine Limited for the purchase of a remotely operated vehicle for use by the Service Underwater Search and Recovery Unit. Funding for the ROV was approved as a capital project for 2025 in the amount of $380,000. And the successful bid submitted by Simo Marine Limited is $288,013.16, excluding HST. Any questions or comments on the board? Yes, Member Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Just to staff at the region that worked on this, and this is almost $100,000 under budget that we originally budgeted for, so it's a good sign that it's quite a bit of money from when we originally talked about this last year and how it's come in. You know, originally at $380 and we're paying at $288. So just want to congratulate staff on getting the best deal we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Steele. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, I ask that the board approve the award of the request for proposal 2025 RFP 165, remotely operated vehicle ROV to Seymour Marine Limited. Moved by Member Gibson, seconded by Member Ebe. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Okay, I've lost my preamble. Thank you. We now move on to item 10.4, special funds request. Before we consider the special fund requests listed under item 10.4 and 10.5, I would like to remind members of the public that the special fund does not form part of the police operating budget and is separate from the regional tax base. The special fund is a discretionary pool of funds which is used for grants and charitable donations. Disbursements from the fund are made in accordance with the guidelines provided in the Community Safety and Policing Act and with Board Bylaw 403/2024, Special Fund Administration Limitations and Guidelines. Thank you. So we have special fund reports. Service report dated January 2, 2026, requesting the board approve the following special fund requests. International Police Hockey Tournament Men's Team, 1,500. Canadian Mental Health Association Wellness for All Fundraiser, 2,500. Niagara Health Foundation Gala, 2,750. Indigenous Liaison Conference, $5,000. Welland Heritage Council and Multicultural Center Newcomer Youth Empowerment Award Scholarship, $2,000, and Niagara Regional Police Service Film Fest, $5,000. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I ask that the board authorize the special fund donations as outlined in the report and approve payment in the requested amounts. Moved by Member Steele and seconded by Vice Chair Kiokio. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Special fund request, Canadian Association of Police Governance Conference. Correspondence dated January 6, 2026 from Executive Director Deb Reed, Niagara Police Service Board providing a copy of communication received from the Canadian Association of Police Governance requesting a donation to support the 37th Annual CAPG Conference being held in Edmonton, Alberta from August 12 to 14, 2026. Any comments and questions? Seeing none, I ask that the board approve sponsorship in the amount of $1,000, friend sponsor, from the special fund to the Canadian Association of Police Governance in support of its 2026 annual conference. Moved by Member Gibson, seconded by Member McKendrick. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Do any board members have any other business? Chief?
No, thank you.
The close, so wait, sorry. What do we say? Okay. So we're gonna have a motion for closed session. The closed session reports and recommendations are considered under the authority of the Community Safety and Policing Act and Municipal Freedom of the Information and Protection of Privacy Act in accordance with the following authorities. CPSA, Section 44.2B, CSPA, Section 44.2E, CSPA, Section 44.2H, and CSPA, Section 44.2K, and MFI PPA, Section 8. Moved by Member Yip and seconded by Member Gibson. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, okay, motion is carried. The board will reconvene in closed session and we'll take a 5-minute break now and then proceed with confidential agenda. Thank you.